All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar called How to Compete in the Shadow of Online Retail Giants. We're really excited to have you guys. Before we get started, I just want to mention that the webinar is being recorded and it will be sent to everyone following the webinar, so no need to ask about that. So let's go ahead and talk about who's leading the webinar. So myself, I'm Dan Hillyer on the left here. I'm a product marketing manager at SimilarWeb. I've been here for about 2.5 years, and I'm joined by my colleague, James Pursey.
Hi guys, really looking forward to getting into how we can help the retail market today. I've also been at SimilarWeb for about the same amount of time, and it's been great watching everything grow, and hopefully some of you guys have come on board as customers during that time. And we're going to show you today how we can really take things up a gear.
For today's agenda, we're going to start with just a brief introduction to SimilarWeb, talk a little bit about our different solutions and how we collect our data, and a few of our customers in the retail space that are using SimilarWeb. From there, we're going to move on to some actual insights, and we have a lot of really cool stuff to show you guys today. And in the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So I encourage everybody throughout to use the question bar on the GoToWebinar to ask questions, and we will answer them at the end. If we don't get a chance to answer you in the webinar, if there are too many questions, we'll be able to, of course, set up a personal one-on-one meeting where we can answer all of your questions. Great. So here is an image showing our three solutions, SimilarWeb solutions, and these are really the three ways to consume SimilarWeb data. So for retailers, they're using a combination of our SimilarWeb Pro SaaS solution, and so they can access our insights with just a few clicks of the button, and they can access this any time of the day, as many sites as they want. So this is a really easy to use interface for getting daily insights. Now we have next the middle product, SimilarWeb Digital Insights, is more of a customized, deeper insight than the SimilarWeb Pro, and we're allowing you to achieve some of the same goals, but really on a bit more deeper level. So talking about things like conversion rates, SKU level conversion rates, and understanding sites and domains on a much more deep and granular level. And then lastly, on the right, we have API and integration. So we allow our customers to access all of SimilarWeb in their own interface, in their custom dashboards, however they want to consume the data, whether it's in their Tableau dashboard or through Excel. We can streamline all of our data directly into a feed into our customers' workflow. And so these are the three ways that our customers consume our data, but really the solutions and the data is the same, very similar across these platforms. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we collect our data. So we have SimilarWeb has a very unique multi-dimensional data collection approach. And this is really the foundation of our business. So at the end of the day, our insights, it comes from our incredible data. And so we leverage hundreds of sources of data, which we categorize into 4 distinct groups. So our first group is the data, the global panel data, and the second is the supplemental data, third, public data sources, and then lastly, the direct measurement data. So these are the 4 groups of data sources that we collect, and I'm going to quickly go through each source. So it really all begins with collecting digital behavior at massive scale. So our first source is the global panel, which is actually a consumer product-based panel. So we have a dedicated team at SimilarWeb that builds consumer-based products. We build very high-value products with an amazing user experience, with absolutely no advertisements, no incentivization. So we focus on building in certain categories that we know are very important to consumers, and thus the products are very sticky. So as the consumers use our products, they're able to provide us with anonymous digital behavior. And so our supplemental data source is really a way to just build up that global panel even bigger. So our global panel is actually the largest panel in the world. We have hundreds of millions of desktop and mobile devices, and our supplemental data sources, which come from ISP, internet service providers, really adds a lot of breadth to that panel. And so it's very, very similar data, but it really just helps us to kind of focus on certain areas that we may need additional supplemental data. The third source, our public data sources, is really important because this allows us to actually collect information that's available to the public in the digital world. And this helps us to understand the site structure, the taxonomy of websites. So what are all the different subdomains and how are sites built? And then we can go on to actually understand the relationships between sites. So we build relationship webs and understand how different websites are related one to another and how consumers interact across these different websites. So once we have this public data source, we're able to really understand and structure our data into different formats. And then lastly, to tie everything together, we have a team of leading mathematicians and statisticians that use our direct measurement data, which is Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, various analytics tools that customers and prospects are giving to SimilarWeb. So we have hundreds of thousands of sites and apps that have actually provided their direct measurement data, such as the providers that I've mentioned, to SimilarWeb, and we're able to use that data to actually really build our calibration and prediction algorithms, our machine learning algorithms, because we're able to understand how our panel and the other sources, the supplemental data and public data sources, really relates to the actual measured data. And from there, we're able to extrapolate for every geography, every site, and every app in the world. And so on the far right, delivering our magic, we believe that it's not just about data, it's about having a beautiful digital interface to actually consume data in a way that makes it accessible and insightful and actionable. And so we focus on not just having the best data in the world, but building the platforms and the ways to actually use that data to improve your bottom line as a business. Quickly to show a few of our retail customers in really the e-commerce space, both on the manufacturing side and also on the actual retail side. So we work with really hundreds of different of businesses, but we chose a few of our customers to show on the slide. So businesses like eBay and Walmart, John Lewis, as well as consumer goods companies like Adidas, L'Oreal, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, etc. And then lastly, agencies are really a big source of our business because they use our data to basically advise their customers. So it's a really great another really great vertical that we work with that services this entire industry. So that was it for the introduction, and now we're going to move on to getting into the actual insights. And so I'm going to first show a few interesting insights that we looked at in the last few weeks and talk a little bit about some upcoming trends. And then I'm going to move into some of our key value propositions as SimilarWeb for the retail industry. So first, I think I'm going to start on the left looking at general merchandise. A few fun and interesting trends right now. I personally really don't get fidget spinners. I think they're really only going to just last a few more months and then going to become sort of not cool, not trending. That's my prediction, but it's still pretty incredible. You look at a product that basically didn't exist last year. It's become the #1 searched non-branded keyword on Amazon, eBay, and Walmart total thus far in 2017. Really, really amazing that a product like this could drive so much demand so moving on to the next insight here, looking at Walmart. It's pretty interesting to see that Walmart's referral strategy is very, very heavily based on coupon partnerships. So competitors like Amazon and eBay, they actually rely on competitors a lot less than Walmart. So while Walmart is about 22.5% of their affiliate partnerships, referral partnerships are from coupons, the other sites are much more around the 10%, 15% average. So it's pretty interesting to us how much their business and their affiliate strategy relies on actual coupon sites. Moving on to the right-hand side, looking at consumer electronics. So Nintendo Switch has really been making waves this year. So earlier we published a blog post and we got quite a bit of pickup in the PR from VentureBeat and a few other outlets showing the impact that really one product can have on the on sales for retailers. So here's just a quick preview of the VentureBeat article that used SimilarWeb data, but we were pretty amazing that a product like this could drive so much traffic, and so every retailer is really searching for the up and coming or best selling products, brands, or categories, and that's a really big use case that we're going to get into in a little bit, when retailers are actually able to use SimilarWeb data to understand exactly the performance of different products, different categories, different brands, etc. So this allows them to kind of focus on the products that are going to drive them the most revenue. Now moving on to apparel. So the apparel industry is always fun to look at because of the heavy seasonality. So here we're looking at a graph of the monthly traffic for three main apparel sites: Macy's, Kohl's, and JCPenney, that are pretty big, especially in the United States. And so when we look at this graph, while we see that Macy's, Kohl's, and JCPenney are quite close, they're pretty neck and neck in traffic, you see before and after the holiday season, it's interesting that in November, December, it's really we really get a clear picture of who's strongest on digital. So Macy's and Kohl's are both crushing JCPenney during these holiday months. And it's interesting that, for example, November, we can see is a much better month for Kohl's, while December is the bigger month for Macy's. So using SimilarWeb, you can really understand exactly the trends and seasonality, and who are the winners, who are the losers, what strategies are working, and which strategies are not working. Moving on to beauty. So this is a pretty cool infographic that we have here, kind of showing the difference between two really big beauty sites, Bath and Body Works and Sephora. Looking at these two sites, you can see that the most popular on-site searches are really focused on brands, and people aren't necessarily looking for non-branded keywords or specific products. It's driven by the brand itself, and that's pretty interesting in this space. And we find that in other industries, it's less so. It's a lot more driven by specific products. And so this was a pretty cool insight that we found. So now we're looking at a really interesting slide showing the top 10 retailers in the United States, and we're looking at a comparison of both visits and engagement. So on the left axis, we're seeing total monthly visits in millions, and on the right-hand axis, we're looking at the average pages per visit. And so the circle size is represented by the volume of traffic, by the total monthly visits. So when we look at this graph, immediately we can see two really big outliers. So Amazon.com and eBay.com. Amazon.com, by far the largest retailer in the United States. But what's also quite interesting is how many average pages per visit consumers are looking at when they're navigating on Amazon.com, and also eBay.com. So these two sites are really kind of outside of the pack, and they really stand out. So consumers are looking at many more product pages on average. And so when we look at the grouping here, the cluster here, they're quite similar, more similar in terms of pages per visit. But what's also interesting is when we compare things like Lowe's and Home Depot, Lowe's and Home Depot have very similar traffic size, although the pages per visit, the average pages per visit is quite different. So instead of about 7 average, we're looking at about 5.7 for Lowe's. So it's really, really interesting to be able to map out every single industry, and SimilarWeb can actually do this in any country in the world and help our customers to identify how engaged consumers are on websites and how much traffic each website is getting. Now, looking at an analysis that we did on a 30-minute interval we call Traffic Pulse. So this is actually looking at Prime Day for Amazon over the course of 24 hours. And so what's really interesting, so the blue line is showing Prime Day 2017, and the orange is showing a month before, basically the average in June. And so you can see how traffic looks. So it starts, it's very, very low, and then it starts peaking as we get to sort of the middle part of the day. So around 2:30, the traffic really peaks for Amazon, and you can really see the magnitude of Prime Day, and it really almost doubled their traffic. And what I also think is quite interesting is looking at things like conversion rate. So we can actually understand exactly the performance of Amazon.com on Prime Day and compare that to both the average in June. So the average in June was just over 8% on Amazon, which is incredible. But you can see how well Prime Day is for Amazon, and how well it's converting their consumers. So over 11% conversion rate in 2017. But what's interesting is even though their traffic, we analyzed their traffic was bigger in 2017 than 2016 Prime Day, you can see their conversion rate in 2016 was actually significantly higher, over 14% conversion rate in 2016. So SimilarWeb has the ability to actually tell you the conversion rate of a website, and then we can go much, much deeper as we're going to dive in just a few minutes. So from here, I'm going to let my colleague James take over. We're going to start by talking about how SimilarWeb allows businesses to benchmark themselves against competitors and market leaders.
Thanks, Dan. So benchmarking is a very interesting topic. It's something I personally struggle with a lot when I speak to customers is what's kind of the purpose? What's the use case? What are you going to do with this kind of data? And a lot of the times when we're speaking to retailers, that becomes a very challenging discussion because of granularity. So tools previously like SimilarWeb, but more commonly like the Comscores of this world, they focus a lot on domain level volume data. But SimilarWeb now has the ability to go a lot more granular than this. And not only does this get you better insight into an individual website, but it also allows you to benchmark and compare a pure play site like Nike.com to Nike within a complex marketplace like Amazon. So what this graphic on the right-hand side is showing you is the size of the sites, which instantly shows, as you guys probably know, why comparing Nike.com to Amazon.com is borderline pointless. With 12 compared to 830 million. But then when we get down to a brand level, we can look at the e-com section of Nike and compare it to the entire Nike brand on Amazon. And you see that Nike is doing a lot better. And then at a category level, a lot of that advantage is lost. So when we're just looking at shoes, it's getting a lot closer. And then at an individual product level, we can still tell you the views that those products are getting. So Dan mentioned earlier about the size of our panel and it allowing us to show you data that other companies can't. This is a really good example. You almost need an exponential increase in panel size for each level that you're going down here. But traffic is only one half of the picture. And on the next slide, we get to look at conversion, which again is something that's pretty unique to SimilarWeb. So here we can see that advantage that Nike has traffic-wise over Amazon is immediately wiped out. And it's important to point out that the data on this slide was run before the announcement about Nike and Amazon now working together. And maybe this is a large part of the reason that they are, because the Nike domain has a conversion rate of just under 3%, but the Nike brand, before they work directly with them, has a conversion rate of closer to 7%. So it's much, much more effective. And what's interesting is for a leading product like the men's Rush 2, Nike still has a very strong conversion rate, similar to the domain average. And we do have the ability to even tell you that within a site like Amazon.com. So that was a quick kind of intro to our ability to dig into a site a little bit more, just looking at the various granularities that we can go into. What we're going to do now is kick into how we can take that data and actually make it useful and valuable, both for companies that compete in the e-com space and also for consumer goods companies that rely heavily on the e-com industry. So this section focuses on how we can make marketing optimizations based on SimilarWeb's data.
So here we're looking at Chewy.com, and SimilarWeb isn't just about telling you how much traffic a site gets. We can also tell you how the site gets that traffic. So the diagram at the top of the page, the bar graph, is showing the channel acquisition. It's kind of the marketing playbook of Chewy.com. You can see that they have a heavy dependency on paid search with just under 4 million visits. Organic and referrals, which includes affiliates, is also quite large, and they're obviously a big brand. But traffic isn't the entire story. You need to be able to understand if that traffic is effective or not. So what we are able to show you at the bottom of the screen is the engagement metrics of each of those channels. For example, paid search is 4 million, but if it has a really high bounce rate, it's not really as important of a channel as it appears. So when we're talking about traffic, we're always backing it up with ways to contextualize that traffic and tell you a little bit about the quality of it as well.
So now we've shown you the ability to identify differences in strategies between your site and your competitor, or between one channel partner and another. And then we've shown you the engagement metrics to give you an indication of performance and whether those channels are effective or not. But the only way to truly know the effectiveness of a channel is to look at how that channel converts. So on the left-hand side, we're looking at Chewy's channel conversion. So the data in blue is exactly the same as the previous slide. It's just showing the amount of visits that each channel generated. And then we've overlaid that with conversion by channel. And you can quickly see that paid search, which we pointed out on the last slide as being very important, is actually their second worst converting channel, coming in almost half that of affiliates and referrals, which is pretty staggering. But the challenge here is we're looking at one moment in time on the left-hand side. And I would imagine Chewy is a pretty big website, but if we looked at this for March, and then if we looked at it for April, just kind of side by side, we wouldn't notice that many differences. It wouldn't really jump out the page at us and tell us what to do. And what really makes this kind of data useful and actionable is looking at that relative change and shift in strategies. So on the right-hand side, we're showing you exactly that. We took essentially this graph for March and April, and we did the shift between traffic in blue and actual sales by channel, no longer conversion rate, in orange. And what you notice is a few things really jumping out at you. So organic search is the obvious one. So we can correlate an increase in traffic of about 4.5% to an increase in sales from organic of about 18%, which is phenomenal. And then we can also see the exact opposite going on. So on the left, we pointed out that the strongest converting channel was referrals. But on the right, we can see referrals grew in April, which if you're just looking at this from a volume perspective, if you're a competitor to Chewy, you might want to find out who those referrals are, see if you can go after them, replicate some of that success. But when we add sales into the picture, you can see that that increase of about 5% traffic correlates to a decrease in sales. Now, the reason this is so exciting for the retail industry is market intelligence and using any form of third-party data is ultimately, for want of a better phrase, it's guesswork, right? You're seeing changes and you're trying to make educated guesses as to whether or not you should go after that traffic. And now, for the first time ever, we're able to correlate those traffic changes to performance changes so that you can make significantly less risky and, more importantly, much higher ROI decisions. So we identified search on the last screen for both PPC and organic as being a big driver of both traffic and sales. And we have the ability to show you every single keyword sending traffic to a site. So this is Chewy.com, and you can see below it, we've also got some other companies as well. And you can see the keywords, including all the not provided stuff, because our methodology isn't impacted by the Google encryption. The amount of traffic each individual keyword sent, which gets rid of things like vanity metrics of ranking positions and things that aren't that actionable. And then you can see the change. So when you start to think of this as a workflow, you identify the channels that grow, you quantify whether or not they led to improvements in performance. And then you get down to an individual keyword level and you just sort by this column, percent change. And immediately you're identifying all of those keywords that were causing the shift on the previous slide, and you know that's the safe investment to try and replicate.
And James, just to jump in, these are actually non-branded keywords. So we have the ability to filter out all the branded keywords and just show the non-branded keywords. And we're also able to see exactly how invested in PPC or organic traffic each keyword is driving. And this is really important to see if you're a competitor and you can identify strong organic search that there's no PPC, for example, and you can start taking traffic share immediately. So just wanted to jump in and clarify that this is just looking at the non-branded searches right now.
You raise a good point as well, Dan, which is, and I promise everyone listening, this wasn't pre-planned. A lot of SEO tools out there, my background is actually in SEO. They give good data, but you have to export it and you have to play around with it in Excel to get anything meaningful. For those of you that haven't used SimilarWeb before, it's definitely worth spending half an hour of your time getting a demo from one of our consultants, because you can do your entire search analysis within the user interface. It's incredibly easy to use and manipulate, as Dan said, immediately wiping out things like branded search terms. So this is an interesting one because external search is important. As we saw on that slide, it's like 20,000 keywords in a single month. But there's a new thing that's kind of trending out there, especially as tools like Amazon start to open up their platforms and allow you to be a bit more aggressive within their domain, which is on-site search. And I would liken this to the average offline shopper experience. If you already know what product you want to buy, whether it's dog food or a mountain bike, you walk into the shop and you have one of two options. You can either wander around the store hoping that you bump into the product you're trying to buy, or you can walk straight up to somebody that works there and say, hey, where's this? And they'll take you straight to it. And we see exactly the same kind of behavior within e-commerce across all verticals, which is when people go to retailers, and it's not just Amazon who are famous for this. As you can see here, Chewy, also Amazon UK, Walmart as well. A lot of people go to the site directly or through branded search, and then they just type in what they want. It's the digital equivalent of asking a member of staff. And you see here that the dependency on on-site search is massive. So yes, you have this amazing opportunity with external. You also have an even bigger opportunity within on-site. And we can get super granular with this as well. So the next slide actually starts to show you, just like we just saw on external search, the individual keywords that are generating these kind of volumes. And we can also speak to performance as well. I think there's a tiny bit of lag on the slides, by the way. So if I suddenly go quiet, it's just because we're waiting for a couple of seconds. But here we go. We can do this across any website in the world. It's very simple and fast and quick for us to run. And here we've done, intentionally shown you a pretty wide array of different things. So we've got a generic term of dog food. Then we've got a sort of mid-market volume brand. And then we've got a big, very popular brand. It's all in the US. And we've alternated between Amazon as the general merchandise marketplace and then the pure play domain of Chewy that we looked at earlier. And you do instantly see Amazon's famous volume behind on-site search, generating 10 times more searches for dog food than Chewy.com, which in itself is a multiple million visit site. But we can also show you how these keywords are converting to a product purchase. So you see that when people do on-site search on either of these domains, they're incredibly likely to make a purchase because, again, I would liken it to that in-store experience. And to point out a couple of things here, yes, the volume of dog food is high, but check out Blue Buffalo on Amazon. It converts at almost 20%. 1 in 5 people that go to Amazon and type in Blue Buffalo, and this is phrase match, so any word containing Blue Buffalo, end up buying a product, which is really, really, really high. And if a company like Hills were to get the same kind of conversion rate for their 70,000 searches, they'd increase their sales instantaneously by 3,000 sales a month, which is pretty phenomenal granularity. And as I said, Amazon now lets you bid on things like this. So this becomes almost like a hidden channel that your competitors don't have access to, and it gives you a great advantage over them.
So everything that we've focused on so far has been around how a site gets traffic and how you can take those learnings and apply them to your own business or your own channel strategy. But that's only half of the challenge within e-commerce. The other half is merchandising. Are you selling the right products? Is there any clear differences on product performance on your site versus your competitor? Or if you're a consumer goods company, how are your products performing? Now, when we get down to the really granular level, the marketing use cases kind of fall to one side because you're not going to spend a ton of resources changing the strategy of one individual SKU or ASIN, but it is fantastic for that merchandising use case, seeing sort of like for likes and understanding if there's any sort of big problems on your site or with your partner. So I'm very excited to be able to announce the launch of this report. It's called Top Products. It's something that we've literally released in the last few days. And what we're now able to do is get down to a SKU level and tell you the number of views that a product is getting, which is the unique page views column here, and also the conversion rate of that product. It's a lot more granular than what we were looking at earlier when we were doing brand and category level conversion with all the channel data, but it's an incredible depth. And here we're seeing it for Target.com across the entire domain.
Yeah, this is a really great slide, James. Especially what kind of catches my eye is the first two products are both Nintendo Switch products, which is pretty amazing, the amount of volume that they're driving on target site. But what also is quite interesting is the conversion rate, and you can see that both of the conversion rates are quite similar, and they're well below the average conversion rate for all products on target. And so when we compare that to, let's say, the fifth performing product on target site, this is actually Target's beauty box that they build every single month. And this is an incredible strategy that they do. Every single month, they build a unique product set of various beauty products from different companies. And they're putting this together, and you can see not only is it driving significant traffic, but the conversion rates are really through the roof, almost 3 times the average conversion rate for products sold on Target site.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And this is also obviously just a sample of this report. You would get a lot more than just 5 results, and you'd be able to make more and more of those comparisons and adjust your own strategy accordingly. Now that's domain level for a general merchandise site, but that's not always enough in terms of granularity. If you're a niche consumer goods company, or if you're something like a Wayfair.com as a pure player, you need to be able to benchmark your own performance against the big players and the complex marketplaces like Amazon, the same way that we looked at category and brand performance earlier on. And the same is true for top products. So here we're able to show you within the Amazon domain, but also within the home and kitchen category within Amazon, what are the top performing products, same kind of thing as before. So it's showing you that extra layer of granularity. And finally, this isn't something that's just for general merchandise sites. We can use this for pure play domains as well. So in this example, we're looking at American Eagle. You can see that it's a very different operating site to the last two. The last two sort of have heavy dependencies on the top 2 or 3 products, whereas American Eagle is fairly evenly spread throughout this top 5, and they're all very similar, and they're converting in a similar way. But a company like ASOS or Hollister could look against American Eagle and use that for both benchmarking and also the merchandising piece. So getting all 3 granularities in there as well. So we've looked at how you can optimize your marketing strategy. We've then looked at understanding product and SKU level conversions within a site. And everything that we've looked at so far has been looking at an individual website. We started off with Chewy.com, then we went into the top product stuff. But really where the true value of this kind of data comes is in comparisons. And that can take a few different forms. It can be looking at audience that visit one site and visit another, which we'll look at in a couple of slides time, or it can be doing a simple side-by-side comparison and getting that benchmark at the right level. Now, what I mean by that is we're able to show conversion. And a lot of the times when our customers ask us for conversion, they're expecting something like this 8.67 that we show at the end, just a conversion rate for a site. But we can define a conversion funnel however we want. In this case, we're doing domain visits, which is the same data as the visit data that you see in SimilarWeb Pro, to add to cart, all the way through to thank you. So what's interesting is if you're benchmarking on volume, it's kind of a pointless comparison. 800 million compared to 91 million, it's a big, big difference. But even just looking at that first step where we show the mini conversion and drive their advantage even more. So you're more than twice as likely to start the checkout process on Amazon as you are on Walmart. And then between starting checkout and actually making a purchase, again, you're about 20–30% more likely to do so on Amazon than Walmart. So if you benchmark purely on visits and visits alone, like you can do with similar tools to us, you're going to say Amazon is roughly, see how good my maths is, 8 times larger than Walmart. But when you look at this in terms of actual purchases with this thank you data at the bottom, you see that Amazon is actually closer to 35 times larger than Walmart. So it's all about changing your perspective, not just by understanding one domain, but by understanding you versus your competitor or 2 of your channel partners against each other.
But again, this is still putting 2 websites side by side. So the last 2 slides move away from that. And what we start to look at is not just how many people went to Adidas or Nike or Tesco's, wherever, but of the people that go to one site or entity, do they also view another one? And we can do this at incredible granularity. So what this slide is showing you is this blue circle, including the gray intersection area, This represents 100% of the users that viewed an Adidas product within Amazon.com in a specific day. And almost 1 in 5 of them, 17% of people that view an Adidas product on Amazon, view a Nike product on Amazon in the same day, which is phenomenally high. You think it's showing that it's not really a brand loyalty thing. People are just looking for the best product at the best price. Again, just caveating that this was made before the Amazon and Nike partnership. But it's another metric that may speak to why they did that partnership, because when a user is exposed to both, so if we're just looking at the intersection, when a user views both products on the same day, they're twice as likely, if you look at the bottom of the screen, to purchase an Adidas product than a Nike product. I'd love to know how that's different for the last month now. But it really speaks to strategy within Amazon and understanding cross-selling. And it's not just a benchmarking piece. So the last slide speaks to a really strategic use case that I'm sure a lot of the consumer goods companies on the line would find useful, which is cannibalization. So there's this kind of trend going on right now where consumer goods companies and subscription companies are really taking off with direct-to-consumer services. So they start shipping directly through their brand.com website, but they still list on channels. And channels like Amazon are obviously still very important to any consumer goods company's performance. But sometimes that relationship isn't as symbiotic as people would like it to be. So this screen is showing the people that view a Bose product on Amazon in blue, and then the people that view a Bose product on Bose in orange. And firstly, this is huge. Like, this blows my mind. 14% of people that view Bose on Amazon go to Bose.com in the same day and view a product, which is really, really high. But what's slightly alarming for them is when a user is given the choice between buying on the direct-to-consumer site and buying on the marketplace, they're 6 times more likely to buy on the marketplace, where it's probably cheaper and it's probably faster delivery. But if they're already going to the Bose website to begin with, there's an argument to be made, and obviously it's subject to a lot of further analysis on that side, that maybe they should consider going it alone and doing the exact opposite of what Nike just did. And this kind of data speaks to a ton of different use cases. The one that springs to mind for me is always coupon sites for retailers. If you list a free delivery coupon on like a Hot UK Deals, how do you know if people are already on the checkout page before they do it? So it's the kind of data that's fantastically valuable when you're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to answer a key business question. And it's, again, another example of something that's pretty unique to SimilarWeb, and hopefully something you guys are excited to hear more about. And that's it from me.
Thanks, James. And thanks everybody for sticking with us through that presentation. That was really, really awesome. So if you have more questions, we'd love to set up a one-on-one and go through in a lot more detail and understand exactly what you need as a business and how our solutions can help. So feel free to contact us at sales@similarweb.com. And now for the last segment of our presentation, our webinar today, we're going to have an open Q&A. So we got quite a few questions. So we really appreciate everyone's engagement. And I also want to mention that we posted a downloadable infographic to the GoToWebinar panel. So you can just go to the sidebar, and there's a PDF there that you can see called Fidgets and Gadgets infographic that you can download and enjoy that. So let's move on to the Q&A section. Okay, so now we're going to take the first question, and the question is, on the slide showing the Amazon traffic pulse, do you have information on which year Amazon drove more traffic? And so that's a really great question. We actually made a blog post that we published on SimilarWeb blog that you can check out, very in-depth, talking not only about the traffic year to year, the traffic on a 30-minute time interval, as well as the conversion rate. And so you can actually identify which years have the highest traffic and which years have the highest conversion rate, et cetera. And this was picked up quite a bit in the news. So there was a few articles in Forbes and various other outlets. So you may have already read some of this information using SimilarWeb data, but I encourage everyone to check out the SimilarWeb blog. Great. So the next question we have is about coupon cannibalization and understanding what the potential impact of coupon sites are on retail sites, whether or not they're helping or hurting. So the question is, how do I identify if coupon sites are driving my bottom line or potentially hurting my bottom line?
So it's a really good question. Can you actually just go back up a couple of slides to one of the overlap examples?
Sure.
So when we talked through this before, we're saying X number of people did this and then also did this, and of them, they're more likely to purchase one than the other, right? It's a sort of a generalist approach that we can apply to multiple sites and scenarios. So when you're looking at coupon sites, this becomes really interesting because we can define a segment however we want. So here it's a product view, but we could also say start checkout or maybe even viewed the cart. So when you're starting to say how many people viewing the cart on American Eagle are also visiting Retail Me Not in the same day, you're understanding how common that crossover and that relationship is. But the thing that completes that cannibalization story is something that's not on these slides, but it is a feature that we have. We call it directional path. And what that's doing is telling us of the people that visit both sites, how many of them actually start on American Eagle and how many of them start on Retail Me Not. So when you pair those two things together, you can speak to that cannibalization point of how common are people using coupon sites whilst on the checkout page of American Eagle, and of the people that are, how many of them are really on American Eagle first, which would be the cannibalization, versus how many of them were led to them from the coupon site.
So James, I think we actually have a slide in this presentation. Let me just quickly look to see. Oh, here we go.
Great. So this is exactly what we were just talking about, the directional path. So the piece that's missing from this slide is the actual overlap element, quantifying how often this relationship's happening. But it's an interesting one because this is the exact opposite of what most people assume. For me personally, when I use a coupon site, I am one of those terrible people that's typically on the retailer's domain first. But here we see of the people that visit Amazon and Slick Deals in the same day, 58% of them actually go to Slick Deals first, which would imply that if there is a coupon relationship between these two domains, it's not really cannibalizing because only 42% of it is going the other way. Now, if you do have a big cannibalizing relationship, this could be as big as like 65-35 or maybe even larger in favor of the retailer, not the coupon site.
Awesome. Thanks, James. So let's move on to the next question. The question is about how large our consumer product-based panel is, and talking about a few examples of these products. So really good question. So I talked a little bit about our data methodology in the beginning of this webinar, but I'm just going to jump into that question. So in terms of the size and representativeness of our panel, we actually have the largest and most representative panel in the world. We have hundreds of millions of devices in our global panel, and so you can start to kind of sense and understand the magnitude of our panel and how representative it is. The fact that we have hundreds and hundreds of millions of devices in our panel representing both desktop and mobile products, and this is really amazing also because our global panel is really just one of our 4 sources of our data. And so I talked about our other 3 sources, and again, we can go into much further detail. But in regards to the second half of the question, which types of products do we build, and a few examples. So we actually build products in 4 main categories, and we discovered that these 4 categories are both very, very valuable to consumers, which is really important for maintaining a sticky and retention based panel. But also we found that these categories of products target very, very diverse audiences. So we're able to capture a very representative view of the digital world because of each product is sort of targeting and reaching a different audience. So these 4 categories are security, habit tracking, performance, and personalization. So a few examples: security, we build antivirus software, we build pop-up blockers. So we have actually products that our consumers love. These products, they're helping them stop malicious attacks on their devices, on desktop and mobile. They're helping them prevent these annoying pop-ups or potentially intrusive experience as they use their different devices. I also mentioned performance. For example, we build products that are helping consumers improve the speed of their devices or improve the memory of their devices. So everyone wants a faster device with more memory, and this is something that we help solve. So we not only provide these valuable products in these categories, but again, all of our products are 100% ad-free, and we never incentivize users to download our products. Great. So I think that's the last question for today. We have a few more questions, but I think we're about out of time. So we'd love to reach out on a one-on-one basis and go through for everyone we didn't get a chance to address your question. And for anyone else, we really, really appreciate everyone joining the webinar, and we'd love to have a discussion following this webinar and understand really your business and have a much more tailored discussion according to some of your goals. So thanks again, everyone, for joining the webinar. It was really great to go through, and thank you, James, for doing an amazing job walking through.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.